Hello and welcome back to my mineral exploration channel. In this video today we are going to take a look at spatial data management using GIS apps. Now imagine you're in the field, you're collecting samples, whether they are rock samples, soil samples or whatever other samples. You would normally go and bag them, sample them and record attribute data. For rock samples, for example, you could capture the color type, you could capture the grain size distribution, you could capture any mineral content, and those are attribute data that you would record either in your notebook or on sample cards, and after that you would transfer the data back to an Excel spreadsheet. Now this is how it's been done over the last 20-30 years. However, nowadays in 2020 there are smarter ways of dealing with your spatial data, especially if you're out in the field collecting lots of these. The major problem with spatial data management is that there can be significant transliteration errors between your field notebook or your sample cards and your Excel spreadsheet. So if you're coming back from the field in the evening and you're tired and you have hundreds of data points to deal with, then it's quite easy that some errors are introduced when you transfer the data from your sample card to your spreadsheet. Now, over the last few years, maybe in 2016 or so, there was a development to introduce so-called GIS sampling apps, and they are freely available. For example, QGIS, Quantum GIS has introduced some of these apps for Android phones. And you also have ESRI producing apps such as Survey123 and Collector for ArcGIS. I use those with ESRI because I've got a subscription and they are really useful to manage your data, especially when you have lots of data coming on. So how are these apps working? Well, you first start off with building a database, a geodatabase structure on your computer, on your desktop, and you determine what are the categories of data that you want to capture, what are the attributes that you want to allow to be captured, and that will automatically reduce transcription errors. So if you define, for example, a rock has the color brown, yellow or black, then only these options, for example, would be available, and that, as I said, would reduce the error later on. So you build this geodatabase on your computer and then you work with these apps and try to tailor the skeleton that has been provided by the developers. And that's a skill that I'm teaching at the Camborne School of Mines to master students, because I believe that spatial data management is absolutely critical when you're an earth scientist and when you're working out in the field and you're busy collecting data. Let's take a look at some of these apps then in a bit more detail. And it's just an overview of the functionality. Let's start off with Collector for ArcGIS. This app is mainly map-centered. So you essentially take your GIS workspace that you develop on your computer back into the field using your mobile phone or your tablet. And that means that Collector for ArcGIS has a map interface that allows you to scroll through the map layers that you want to take into the field. And this can be quite exciting if you are a geologist and you want to have access to your geological map, or you want to have access to any sampling data, some historic data, some geophysical raster images. All of this is useful in the field. So imagine you're hunting for structurally controlled gold deposits and you want to know where exactly are my shear zones. Well, the best is to have your magnetic survey image present. And that is possible to put on Collector for ArcGIS. So you can switch on your using the database structure that you set up beforehand. Okay, so it's all been designed previously, as I said, and if you then scroll through the different fields that you set up previously, you can then capture very nicely and very neatly your data that you plan to get for your fieldwork campaign. Okay, the one negative point I find with Collector for ArcGIS is that it is quite a rigid structure. The database is very rigid, and its interface of this data collection is not very flexible. Great, let's move on to Survey123 for ArcGIS. Now this is not a map-centered app, but it's mainly focusing around an interface that allows very easy functional data capture. And this is especially useful if you have lots of data to capture, if you have assistants or other people who are not necessarily earth scientists or geologists, and you need them to capture data very quickly without the necessary map interface. And you can see here, I'm putting this into the video, you can see how the layout of this app can be pretty much individualized as you see fit. And that is a great option, because you can design appearance, you can design a logical flow of data. You can use so-called relevant functions in Survey123, so only if you click one option it will unfold another set of questions that you can answer. So Survey123 has its own benefits. It's very easy to use, reasonably easy to set up. It lacks, however, the map functionalities, and that could be a certain problem if you're out and about in the field collecting this data. However, nowadays there are also possibilities to link these two apps, so that you, for example, have an initial Collector for ArcGIS interface where you've got all your maps, all your historic information that you need, and you then put in a hyperlink that links your survey in Collector to the Survey123 app. It opens it up automatically and you have this nice data interface. So that is maybe in a nutshell the developments that we have these days on the GIS app market. As I said, I'm running such courses at Camborne School of Mines. I think it's quite important that people get educated in these modern technologies and can efficiently speed up the way they do field work, the way they capture data, and the way they manage data. Maybe one last thing I should mention is that with these apps there is a great functionality. It's like a cloud-hosted function almost. Now, of course, you need to pay the subscription to this via ArcGIS Online, but I quite like that you can capture the data offline, and then when you're back in the office and internet connection, you can then synchronize the data and work from it from anywhere. So if you're out in Central Africa collecting it, you're then synchronizing it. The bosses in Perth or in London or wherever, they can then instantly see where the data has been collected and work with it. That as my last point. Great, I hope you enjoyed that video, some of the screenshots and the app demonstrations I've put into this video. And yeah, I'd be keen to hear your comments if you use this software and these apps before, how you like it. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you. Take care.